Hi, this is the second in the series of videos on EtherCAT in relation to its use with Weidmuller hardware. The first video explains some very basic features of EtherCAT and what hardware Weidmuller offered to support it. This video will go through the steps of configuring EtherCAT itself within the uOS Codesys environment. So first stage is to open up my Codesys package, which I will do now. So I'm using Codesys, let me show you, 3.5 SP20 patch 2. As I previously said in an earlier video, I think 3.5 SP18 is an adequate starting point, if that's what you've already got. So I'm going to start with a clean project, so File, New, Standard Project, and then give it a name. And I'm putting in the hardware I'm actually using. Okay, that. So the first thing you have to do is pick the correct device hardware. So when you download Codesys from the Codesys site, you'll find that you only get these targets. You have to install these using something called the Codesys installer. I'm not going to go into that today in this video. I will create another video which explains how you use the Codesys installer to install the Weidmuller targets. But I'm going to work on the assumption you know how to do that. So I put the controller, pick whatever language you prefer to program with. I'm not actually going to produce any program code at this point. I'm just going to configure the hardware. Okay, that. Give it a few minutes to build itself into a basic project. I've actually got a system bus. I've got a working system, so I am actually going to configure this to suit my hardware. So the first stage I need to do is go into System Bus and add the physical hardware that I actually have. So in my case I have Add Device. What's quite nice with the Weidmuller implementation in Codesys is you actually get a physical drawing showing the hardware modules. So there's my coupler, and here's your cards. And if you know the part number of the card or the description, you can quickly go to it. So I want a communications card, so I can literally type in COM within filter, and I want to use that card, a communications card RS232485. Okay, and then I've also got a 3EM energy monitoring module, so I can drag that across as well. And then I have a IO link module, so I can type in COM again, and I want a 4 IO link module. So you can use this principle, add your cards. I've then got an RTD card, temperature card, that card. Okay, so that's basically imported my physical hardware into my system bus. So system bus meaning the IO local to the controller. Okay, so the next stage is to add the EtherCAT system. The first stage is actually to install the ESI files, the device description files for the couplers and IO modules I mentioned in the previous video. So hopefully you've downloaded those. So if you go into Tools, Device Repository, here you can see fieldbuses, for example, and EtherCAT. You can check this, but I've deliberately deleted all of the EtherCAT Weidmuller slaves. But if you go in EtherCAT, go into slave and look for Weidmuller, just see if you see anything. I don't think they're there by default, but I'll go through the process of adding anyway. Okay, so if you just go to install here, so these are the files that I explained how to download in the previous video. and this in my case is from EtherCAT standard hardware version 1, and this is the current ESI file. So I just click on that, open, go through the install process. Okay, that's done. You can close that window down.
So we've added the ESI files for the EtherCAT uRemote slaves. We need to now add the EtherCAT master into the Codesys project. So go to devices or device, add device, EtherCAT fieldbus, master, and pick the top one there, just generic EtherCAT master. Add device, close that. The EtherCAT master's there, so now we're ready to the next stage, which is to add Ethernet slaves.
Click in EtherCAT master, and then we have to make sure that we're pointing to the right Ethernet port to pick up the EtherCAT slave. So if I go to here, auto config master slaves, I've not adjusted anything. All I'm going to do now is go to select, and you'll get a pull down list of all the Ethernet ports. Go online to the controller or the Linux operating system. Connected to the controller. Try that again. Okay, and you get a list of all the Ethernet ports available to you. What you're looking for is these two. So these are the MAC addresses of your controller, and these are the Ethernet ports you want to communicate with. And you want to be communicating out of the second port, which is actually ETH1. So select that. That comes up there now. Okay, so now we can right click on the Ethernet master, and let's try scanning for devices, see what happens. Okay, so we only have one EtherCAT slave on our system, and it's picked it up correctly. So it's picked up the EtherCAT coupler, and it's picked up the two I/O cards I have. So unlike when you configure the system bus, the local I/O, where you have to manually add the cards, with EtherCAT it recognises the cards by their ID, and I just go copy all devices to project, and watch the tree expand, and there they are. Okay, so that's the very basic level of EtherCAT setup. What you can do now is click into a card. Actually, you don't want to click onto the card itself, you want to click onto the EtherCAT master, because what we're going to look at now is how to parameterize the I/O modules. If you can imagine, the 4AO-UI module is 4 analog output channels, which can be voltage or current, and it's 16-bit. So you've got to parameterize how you want that signal to be sent out. Do you want it to be 0 to 10 volt, 0 to 5 volt, 4 to 20 milliamps, etc. So you have to configure it, and that's done by parameters. On certain UR20 modules, you actually do it within the coupler by the web server. For example, on Modbus TCP, that's normally how you do it. But with EtherCAT, you do it within the Codesys project. So if you click on the EtherCAT coupler, go to Startup Parameters and Add, you can see here an area called Parameters for the 4-channel analog output module. Really, the ones you want to look at are the 4 channels. So it's these 12 values. There's 3 parameters for each channel. So there's data format, output range, and substitute or fallback value. Data format means the value the numbers you're sending out to be in Siemens S5 format or Siemens S7 format. That probably means nothing to you unless you're very familiar with Siemens. It doesn't mean much to me. So to understand what that means, you need to refer to the UR20 General Manual and then look up the actual individual module you're using, find out what these parameters mean, and then decide what values you need to put in them. I'm going to visit the website. I've gone to catalog.weidmuller.com. Notice it's the German spelling. I'm looking at IO systems, so I'm going to look at IO systems and I'm going to look at UR20. And I can literally pick any module, a coupler or an IO card, it really doesn't matter. Pick anything. Then go to downloads and scroll down to downloads here and or user documentation, and you've got Manual U Remote English. So you really need that. Just to say, there are other manuals here. There's the Functional Safety Manual and the manual regarding using the web server. So they're all usable, useful and worth downloading, but that's the one we're interested in at the minute, the main manual, which looks like this. Okay, and if I check the date, there we go, 30th of November 24. So that manual is barely 2 months old. So we are quite good at keeping manuals up to date. There is a new version probably every 3 months. If I open up the index, we need to scroll down to the card. So it's that one. So you get some details on the card, how to wire it, etc., what it's capable of doing. And if I look down here, these are the editable parameters. So here's the first one I mentioned, data format, S5, S7. Okay, so if I put 0 in here, so data format, if I put 0 there, it'll be S5 format. If I put a 1, it'll be S7 data format. You still really probably don't know what that means, so if I scroll down, here we go. So if I wanted to configure that channel as a 0 to 20 milliamp output, if I used S7 format, I would need to send out a value of 27648 to give out 20 milliamps. If I pick S5 format, I need to send a value of 16384 to send out 20 milliamps. So that's the difference. I would argue, well, I would say that the S7 format is better because it's giving you a wider band, the more resolution. So I'm going to pick S7 data format. So if I flick back to here, scroll back up, S7 data format means I need to put a value 1 in that register. So if I go back to here, change that to 1, and if I want to, I can rename this slightly to make it a bit more meaningful and call it UR20 for AO UI 16, and I'll copy that because I'm lazy. Control copy, and that's setting up a value. So when the controller starts, these will be the startup parameters that it sends to the U remote. Okay, so probably the best way to do this is to move that to one part of the screen, split that to the other part of the screen, and then look up what you want to do. So let's say I want the output to be 0 to 10 volt. I need to put a value of 2. So click in here, add, scroll back up, add output range, copy what I said earlier to make it clear what I'm talking about. So I'm talking about that card, channel 0, and I want it to be 0 to 10 volt, so I put a value of 2 in there. Hopefully this is making sense to you. Okay, so substitute value. So in other words, what value do I want to give out if there's a loss of comms? Do I want to force a value? I'm going to say okay, yes I do. So I go add again, parameters of that output card, substitute value, put that in front just to make it more obvious what I'm talking about, and then say substitute value depends on the channel data format. So if you remember, I picked S7, which is this one, sorry, 0 to 10 volt. So I could say send out 13824 5 volt in the event of a loss of comms. Now, don't copy me, this needs to be what suits your application. You might want the fallback value to be 0. You might need the fallback value to be 10 volts because it's controlling something that's critical. Purely down to application, but the option is there to configure a fallback. So, just to explain again, substitute value, also known by most people as fallback value, for channel 0 of the output card, and I'm going to send out that value, which represents 5 volt, because I'm in that S7 data format. Okay, so you'd have to repeat that for all 4 channels, so there's another 9 entries you'd have to put in there. And then let me just show you the other card I've got is a digital card. Go back to the index. Okay, go back to my project, and I've got this 4 RO relay output card. So find that in the index. That's the one. Again, how to wire it, a bit of detail about it, but at the end of the day, it's just a digital, so it's either off or on. So the only parameter is what do I want it to do in the event of a loss of comms, and I'm going to say I want it to stay on, and there's 4 channels. So if I click back to here, I go back to the top, add that card, substitute value, and it's for UR20 for ROCO255, and I want it to be 1. So in the event of a loss of comms, that output will go high. So if you need to set those fallbacks up again, you need to put that in 4 times. And that's that part, that's that card done, or that's as far as I'm going to go. You get the idea. You might have to put a lot more startup parameters in there than I have. I'm just giving you an example. There are some other areas you need to look at. I'm just going to have a look and decide what else I need to activate. If you want to do testing of your I/O on EtherCAT, like forcing, and you haven't got any program written, as in you want to test without writing your program, you can go to Device, you can go to PLC Settings, and you've got Bus Cycle Task. So you can say always update variables. You can say disabled only if used in the task. So in English that basically means unless you've got a section of code running in the task, then the I/O isn't updating. So if you want the I/O to update without an application or a POU program being called up in a task, you can change that to 1. Enable 1, use the bus cycle task if not used in any task. That's what it's trying to say. So you go OK. So it's just warning you that I've made a major change, so OK, I have to do a download to accept that. So I think that's the basics I need to set up to get my EtherCAT running. So the next thing is to go online to the controller. Well, build the project first. Check there's no errors. Got 1 error there, let me see what that is. Okay, I think during making this video I've power cycled the controller and turned it off, so let me turn the controller back on and try again. I've just rebooted my controller, and if you didn't know, the controllers can take 5-10 minutes to boot up because it is a Linux PC running Codesys, so you have to wait for Linux to wake up as you do with Windows PC, and then Codesys has to wake up on top of that. So one way to see what state you're in is to actually go into the browser, the web server of the controller. So this is my IP address. So I can go into there and you can see it's loading there. There my IP address is. There's the uOS firmware version I mentioned earlier. And that's my product, physical product. So if I go to Apps, App Manager, you'll see the various apps you can have. For example, Codesys Procon Web Embedded System, Node-RED, name a few. So as I say, this controller is just booting up, so this is a good way to check and Codesys is up and running, because again, if you're not familiar with this product, you need a Codesys runtime license. You need a Codesys runtime license just to have Codesys running on the controller. You also need a communications license, and you also need a visualization license if you're using visualizations that are created within the Codesys software. Because if you want to, that is a feature of Codesys, you can have visualizations within that software. I'm jumping the gun and trying to get it to show the app manager while it's still loading, so I'll give it another minute and try again. So there are a few elements to these controllers. There's the fact that it's a Linux PC. On top of the Linux PC you're running Codesys runtime, and then on top of the fact you've got Codesys, you've got these apps. For example, as I mentioned, Node-RED, Procon Web Embedded Systems. So there are a lot of different elements to the controllers. They're not a basic automation controller. Okay, so now the app manager is loaded and this shows me my apps and which ones are running and which ones are still starting. I'm not really concerned about the remote access or the Node-RED. The only one that matters at the minute is the Codesys control up and running. If I switch back to Codesys now, I know the Codesys control runtime is okay. Build, still got that error. Okay, so let's try select again. There, you see there, we've gone devices connected. I'm not too concerned about certificates. Again, I'm going to ignore that for now and bind to the Ethernet port of the controller. So I want to connect to Ethernet 1, which is actually port 2, and it's populated with the MAC address, so that should be okay now. So if I build again, it should build hopefully without any errors. Yep, no errors, no warnings. I'll do a save at this point. Keep saving your work. Online login. Download the new, it's already in run, so I want to remove the existing program and put this new program in the menu. Okay, that's successfully downloaded. All this red triangles is telling you that we're in stop basically. So I'll put it into run now. I'm getting all green lights. So system bus have got a red light for some reason. Oh no, it's cleared now. Okay, notice this one here, orange. So you may well see an orange warning here. That basically means that you're running on a temporary license or a trial license, or more to the point, you've got no license. So the controller will run for 2 hours without a license. That's the Codesys side, but the EtherCAT side is actually part of the comms. That's another license. So I think you'll find that will probably go offline within 30 seconds. Just be aware of that. Everything's looking alright. If I click into here and go to status, it's running, not getting any diagnostic errors, that's a good sign. If I click into the actual EtherCAT master and go into status, number of frames sent, frames per second. If the license is missing or invalid, the PLC runs in demo mode. So that's a reflection of this orange warning. So nothing's wrong, I just don't have a license. It's all working. If I've got I/O here, it's working and I can send values out. Everything's fine. That's it for this video, I think. We've got a controller with local I/O on board on the system bus, and we've added one EtherCAT master, and we've added one EtherCAT slave, the UR20. I hope that's been helpful to you, and as I say, there will be other videos in this series to keep building up on this project, just to give you an idea of additional features within the software.
Please like and subscribe.
Thanks a lot for watching. Take care and see you again.